Hello and welcome to Lamplighter. Today is November 3. Today in our daily Bible reading, we continue to read about the ministry of Jesus. And in today's reading, it's very interesting because it seems that we haven't been very long on a journey with Jesus through his ministry, and we're already approaching a section of Scripture entitled Preparation of the Apostles for the End. Jesus begins to talk about the end of things, knowing what the end of things is going to be and what his mission on the earth actually is supposed to entail. And so he wants to prepare his disciples, his followers, for what is yet to come. Now, it seems clear from today's reading, as well as from some other places, that the apostles know something about Jesus, that they are starting to put some of the pieces together. It seems very clear that they believe he is the Messiah, the long-awaited one prophesied through the prophets for so many years. But their understanding of who Messiah is or what Messiah is to be seems a little bit disjointed from Jesus' purpose and his plan. It seems that the apostles of Jesus, though they believe he is the Messiah, still have kind of a political understanding of that term, believing that Jesus is coming to start some sort of revolution, that he's going to overthrow the governmental powers and become that governmental power himself. And that's the belief that many people of this day share as well. So Jesus is wanting to take some time to try to prepare them mentally and emotionally for some things that are going to take place according to a plan that God has had in place for many, many years, since before the creation of the world, as a matter of fact. So Jesus is seeking to warn his apostles about the coming days. Now, there comes a time after Jesus has sent them out on a special mission to communicate that the kingdom of heaven is near. They come back and they're excited and they're reporting to Jesus the things that they've seen and the things that they've heard from people and the experiences that they've had. And Jesus pulls them away from the crowd on a bit of a retreat, you might say. He takes them to Caesarea Philippi, and while they're there together just enjoying fellowship and sharing their experiences, Jesus asks them the question, "What are you hearing people say about me? What do they believe about my identity?" And the disciples start to answer one by one. Some say you are John the Baptist. Some say you are Elijah or one of the prophets. And Jesus then makes the question very personal. He says, "But what about you? Who do you say I am?" And that's when Peter boldly proclaims, "You are the Christ." That word means Messiah, the anointed one of God. "You are the Christ," he says, "the Son of the living God." And Jesus blesses Peter on that occasion and says to him, "What you are speaking now is being revealed to you from heaven, from God himself. You are not speaking like man, you're speaking like God." But it's very shortly after that Jesus then begins to talk about how his life on earth is coming to an end, how he will stand before the religious rulers on trial, how he will be put to death and buried, and later, 3 days afterward, rise again from the dead. The disciples are not sure what to make of all that, except Peter does hear Jesus saying that he's going to be killed, and Peter, very boldly and very loyal to the cause, says to Jesus, "We will never let that happen to you. No, Lord, not on my watch," so to speak. And then Jesus turns and says something seemingly very harsh and abrupt. He says, "Get behind me, Satan." And on this occasion, he says to Peter, "You are not thinking like God or speaking like heavenly things. You are speaking like man, like someone of the earth." So Peter has made a complete turnaround without even realizing what has happened. But Jesus again is trying to get his disciples ready for the end of time, for the end of their relationship with him on the earth. He starts talking more specifically about discipleship and the burdens that are included. He says, "If anyone would come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross and follow me." The cross, of course, being an instrument of death. "For whoever wants to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for me and for the gospel will save it. What good is it, he asks, for a man to gain the whole world, yet forfeit his soul? Or what can a man give in exchange for his soul? If anyone is ashamed of me and my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, the Son of Man will be ashamed of him when he comes in his Father's glory with the holy angels. He's telling them of a coming kingdom that is coming very soon, within their lifetime, as a matter of fact. And then we read of this marvelous moment called the Transfiguration, where Jesus takes Peter, James, and John up on a high mountain, and there he's transfigured before them. His face is radiating with brightness. His clothes are transformed into white radiance. He is then joined by Moses and Elijah, Moses seemingly representing the law, Elijah seemingly representing the prophets. And while the disciples are afraid and stunned, they hear the voice from heaven saying, much like it did at the baptism of Jesus, "This is my beloved Son. Listen to him." And Moses and Elijah are gone, and only Jesus is left standing there. And he says to the disciples, "Don't be afraid," as he is so accustomed to doing. Then as they're walking down the mountain, he tells them not even to tell others about this experience. They get down from the mountain after this magical moment, and they find out that the world is still going on. There are still problems and weaknesses and sicknesses back in the reality of the real world. And they come down the mountain and they see this man who has brought his epileptic son to Jesus. And he wants Jesus to heal him, but since Jesus wasn't present, he's asking the disciples of Jesus to do something, but they are not able. And Jesus shows his disappointment that he's going to have to put up with this faithless and unbelieving generation. But I want to read some excerpts from that encounter where the man says to Jesus, "Teacher, I brought you my son who is possessed by a spirit that has robbed him of speech. Whenever it seizes him, it throws him to the ground. He foams at the mouth, gnashes his teeth, and becomes rigid. I asked your disciples to drive out the spirit, but they could not." "Oh, unbelieving generation," Jesus replied, "how long shall I stay with you? How long shall I put up with you? Bring the boy to me." And so Jesus then asks the boy's father, "How long has he been like this?" "From childhood," he answered. "It has often thrown him into fire or water to kill him. But if you can do anything, take pity on us and help us." "If you can," said Jesus, "everything is possible for him who believes." That's a great statement made by Jesus. Everything is possible for him who believes. But I love the response of this boy's father. Immediately the boy's father exclaims, "I do believe. Help me overcome my unbelief." Can't we relate to that today? We do believe in God, don't we? We believe in the power of God to change life, to change circumstances, to make all things work together for good. We believe it intellectually, but it's so hard for us to trust. It's so hard for us to let go. And our prayer often could be that of this boy's father. "Lord, I do believe. Help me in my unbelief." Jesus goes on to talk to his disciples about Elijah who is coming, and that Elijah is really John the Baptist, who had a very similar mission. He talks about his death again and how it is coming right over the horizon, and yet the disciples still can't seem to understand what he's talking about. Jesus shows concern for the young when he says, if anyone leads these young children astray, it would be better for him to have a millstone tied around his neck and thrown into the deepest sea. He cares about the influences that are being given to these young children. He warns his disciples about temptations that are coming. He's telling them to not be concerned about others who seem to be trying to do similar things, because he says, whoever is not against us is for us. He talks about rebuke and discipline and how to do it appropriately with witnesses present. He talks about the authority that has been given to them to teach and to communicate to others the good news of the coming kingdom. Peter even talks to Jesus about forgiveness, and Jesus makes it very clear that his disciples should be a forgiving people as well. wonderful things we learn about the ministry of Jesus when he focuses his efforts on what is about to come. Isn't it great to be a lamplighter? His word is a lamp to our feet and a light to our path. I hope you have a blessed day.